Thank you, Ashley and Rennie, for being part of our worship team this morning. And good morning and welcome to those of you who are joining us online today. I have a question for you. Have you ever had this experience? You had a really big dinner, family dinner, Thanksgiving, and everybody's pretty fat and sassy, and boy, it's been a good dinner, and some people are over there watching a ball game, and some people are playing cards, and some people are just chit-chatting, and you decide, well, now's the time I think I'm going to tackle the kitchen, and you walk in, and it's deer in the headlights, because as far as the eye can see, there is leftovers, dirty dishes, the sink is full, the trash is overflowing, and you say to yourself, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. Have you ever been to the doctor and they say, if you don't straighten up, we're going to have to do some medication? And you say, I don't even know where to start. Have you ever had a task that it was a major problem, maybe at work or something, and you go, I don't even know where to start? It's a question we ask ourselves fairly often, at least I do. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I say, I just don't even know where to start. There's a task list longer than about a week worth of stuff to do. Where do I start? So this is the month of October, and we're going to ask that question, where do I start and how do I start, through the process of our story about looking into a very long-time Unity classic, Spiritual Economics by Reverend Eric Butterworth. Now, it also happens to coincide with our pledge campaign. Annually, we have a pledge campaign, and I'm really excited about this because and I want you to hear this so very clearly. I want everybody to get clear on the issue about a pledge campaign. The church does not need your money. I'm not guilting you into this, okay? Well, the church needs money, you know. You know, the church is a building, and it will survive however it survives, however we take care of it, however we pay for it. And if we don't, we sell it, we knock it down, we go. The building itself does not need your money. But you need to learn the spiritual practice of giving. You need to learn, I need to learn. What does it mean to truly give? Give with the freedom of heart. Give with the freedom of soul. Give into it. You know, people sit there and they say, Marianne, I want more love in my life. I want more money in my life. I want more health in my life. Well, what are you giving into life to stimulate that flow so that it returns to you multiplied? That's the promise of Scripture. It comes back, pressed down, multiplied, and what? Running over. That little thing, whatever it might be, that you gave out. You decided to go on, you take the first step to a health program, and you said, you know what I'll do? I'll get a Fitbit, and I'll try and make 1,000 steps today. And when you do that, you know, it may take you a month to get to 1,000 steps, all right? But when you do that, there's an empowered feeling, isn't there? You kind of like Rocky, you know, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. What happens is, as you're giving out, the flow is increasing, right? So the more you give, what's the axiom? The more you receive. So our pledge campaign is the opportunity to listen deeply. It's not about, let me write this out and hurry it and get it over. I don't want you to hurry and get it over with. I want you to truly sit with it through this month. I want you to invite yourself to the opportunity to learn to give and to learn to listen. Those two things come together. Because, you know, I could look at my checkbook and say, well, that's all I got to give, that's it. And God speaks to our hearts gently, saying yes, and, yes, and. You know, if you do weight training at all, or any sort of physical activity where you're training, if you use the same weight for 20 years, things don't work as well as they used to. I'm telling you, take my word for that. You have to up that weight. You have to up that giving, whatever that giving is, whether it's giving into your health, whether it's giving into your relationships. You know, our relationships get stale, our money gets stale, our lives get stale, our health gets stale because we have not given in to the flow. So looking at our book, Spiritual Economics, I'm really tickled because our team that's been on the pledge campaign, Linda Goebel and VC Garrett and Bethany Stevenson, they've created a whole month worth of study on this, which is really great. Beth has done the handouts for you, saved me a lot of work. I thought that was a great idea. And Linda is our letter writer, and VC has been the one who's gotten all the mailings and stuff ready to go. So this is a really team effort, and it's really exciting to me. So how do we start? You know, that's the question at the very beginning. How do we start with this? Well, the first thing I think that's so classically important, way in the introduction of Eric Butterworth's book, he says, we've got to understand what prosperity is. We are so used to saying prosperity equals money, and that's all it is. It's nothing more. And what we fail to understand is prosperity is far more than just money. And I love what he said in that introduction part. He said, it is a consciousness of spiritual well-being. Ooh, I love that. It is a consciousness of spiritual well-being. It does not say, and when your bank account is, and when your health indicators are, and when your relationship does this, that, or the other thing. It has nothing to do with that, and yet at the very same time, it is an all-encompassing energy. I don't know about you, but I feel that oftentimes I let my consciousness kind of slide down. Life wears me down. Oh, it's not going to happen for me. Oh, this is just not so good. And I feel sometimes a sense of hopelessness, maybe sometimes a sense of helplessness. And even there's that little tinge of victimness. I mean, let's face it. All you have to do is watch the news for about a half an hour and you'll feel all three of those things very quickly. What do we do with that? Where do we go to say, all right, dust yourself off, straighten back up again? You are an empowered person. You are not a victim. You are not helpless. There are resources. And it is not hopeless because you are, as our daily word said today, a package of infinite possibilities. Whatever today is for you. You know, think of that. It challenges me so because I think to myself, well, you know, here I am and at this age and at this place in my time in my life and this is it. This isn't it. This is just a doorway. It's a threshold to the morrows of my life, and however many there are. Honey, my grandmother died at 104. I'm only 68. I got a long way to go. The tomorrows they're an infinite possibility. An infinite possibility. So I don't want to just get more money per se. I want to grow my consciousness of spiritual well-being. I want to have an all-encompassing sense of my life as something worth living, as something that I enjoy, as something that gives out into the world. It's a greater sense of who I am, both in the sense of a spiritual being, individualized, and at the same time part of a great collective whole that is moving out into the world with a greater awareness of who and what they are and the gifts they have come to bring to the world. Folks, all of us were created in the image and likeness of the Creator. Beautiful, whole, magnificent. And each and every one of us have been assigned, if you will, a gift, a life. And our job in this lifetime is to use that gift. That's what we return to God. We don't return to God and say, look, I've got 3 mansions, four boats, and I've got a yacht in Monaco. I'm best friends with the Queen, don't you know? And God says, really, that's special, but what do I care? Because I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, you were given. You were given. And what did you give? What did you give into the world? How did you expand and understand your greater consciousness of prosperity, spiritual well-being? The second thing about prosperity that we need to do some work on, where do we start, is kind of shifting our mindset. And this is kind of interesting. I have said, and I have heard people say, when I was growing up, I guess we were poor. We didn't really have much. Nobody else around us had much. And I didn't know I was poor until I was older and found out I was poor. Now think about that for a minute. How that thought, I didn't think I was poor. I didn't think it. I thought I was prosperous. I thought I had a really good childhood. And I did have a really good childhood. But I didn't think, oh my gosh, I'm poor. We're poor. If we were, everybody else was poor too. But the advent of television, the internet, the visual media has made it very abundantly clear what is the definition of rich and what is the definition of poor. And this comes up, those of us who've traveled to Africa, especially into the third world countries, really see this more and more because their definition of an American is what they see on television. And they can't understand that my house is just it's a townhouse. It's 3 bedrooms and a bath. And they're like, but where's the acreage and the horses in Tulsa, Oklahoma? But their image, think of how scary this is. Their image is what they see on the soap operas. Think of that. Now, I know there's probably no one in here who's ever watched a soap opera, but if you have, you know that they're always well-dressed, they always live in big mansions, they always drive nice cars, they always have, money, and you just go, that's your image of America? Because that's what you think America is. But that is not what America is. That's not what it is to me, or it's not what I represent. And so I find that, especially when we travel, it is so interesting to look around and walk around the streets, and all of a sudden you turn the corner and there's a McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're like America. Why? Why do you want to be like America? Tell me why you want to be like America. For that food? And I came to eat your food. I came to experience your world. So this idea of thought is so powerful because, you see, prosperity is about the way we think. It's about the way we are, and it has nothing to do with money or goods. And poverty is about the way we think and the way we believe, and it has nothing to do with money or goods. It's the way we think. So what we want to do in this early start of, increasing our prosperity consciousness is we want to hear ourselves think, challenge our thinking to expand so that we can experience that giving and also that receiving, that incredible flow. And so this is primarily what Butterworth's book is all about. And as I said, it is a longtime Unity classic because I think what I love about Butterworth is he says it in pretty simple language, and he doesn't really mince words. He has a lot of examples that I go, I get that, I've seen that, or I've done that myself. And he invites us to the edge of our knowings to say, yes, and then there's more. And then there's more to understand, and there's more to learn. So in your program today, you have a handout that I believe is purple. And for those of you who are online, it will be on Pathways on Thursday and on our website on Monday. So I invite you to kind of look at that, because he's going to give us kind of a walking, stepping place for us to say, what do we do first? Number one. Number one, where do we start? I love this number 3 in our handout. The whole of God is present at every point in space and at the same time. Where is God not? That's basically what it says. Now think about this for a minute. Because we tend to think, well, God left us. Or we tend to think that God doesn't know our need. So we pray, listen up, God. I have this problem. Well, I have a lot of problems. And you've got to fix this. You've got to change this. You've got to do it. I don't got to do it. I'm just telling you what needs to be done. And prosperity, that consciousness of spiritual well-being, is what brings me into well-being. It doesn't bring me into well-being to be disempowered and victim. It brings me into well-being to be empowered and to know that there is something I need to do. The whole of God is present at every point in space at the same time. We're not waiting for God. You know, I used to pray. I'd hear an ambulance drive by. I say, oh, God, get there before the ambulance, be with those. But God is already there. But think about our language. Think about the way you think about prayer. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to my prayer room and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna pray. And God's like, I already know what you need. I've known what you've needed from the moment I created you. See, it isn't what you need, it's expressing. It's expressing. In other words, God doesn't come and go. Oh my goodness. I don't feel God's presence anymore, Marianne. I just don't feel God. I don't feel God. Well, you know, God is everywhere present. God didn't stop thinking about you. Isn't that good news? God didn't stop thinking about you. God didn't stop loving you. God didn't stop caring about you. God is not, Santa Claus, the big guy in the sky with the big list and saying, I'm making a list and I'm checking it twice and you're not doing it and you've been naughty and not so nice. And, and on it goes. God says, I love you. The psalmist says, the steadfast love of God endures forever. Doesn't that touch your heart? The steadfast love of God endures forever. It didn't say when you're a good girl. It didn't say when you did the right thing. It didn't say anything. There are no the steadfast love of God endures forever. I love that passage. We may pray for increased supply, but the whole God's substance is constant presence. Knowing and practicing is the key to prosperity. The key to our prosperity is not chasing after it, which we often do. We want to play the lotto, we want to play, and there's, if that's your game, if that's some fun for you, that's okay. Been there, done that myself. But to chase after it because that will make you rich. To chase after the job because that will make you rich. To chase after the situation, the family, the man, the whatever, because that will make you rich. You will be constantly depleted because you're chasing after an illusion. Because where you're rich is inside. Where you're rich is in your soul. And we must know that. See what he says here very, very clearly. We must know it and practice it. We must know that we are connected to that steadfast love. We must know that we are filled with prosperity. We must know at every moment in time. And then we must act. And then we take the step forward. The second one, he talks about faith. He says, faith doesn't influence God out there to send riches or to fill our needs down here. Faith is spiritual capacity by which we may shape the basic form of spirit substance. When we get ourselves into the universal flow, we become synchronized with this divine bias for good, and amazing things can and will unfold. I like to, this divine bias. You see, in the book of Genesis, let's go all the way back to Genesis 1:01. God created everything, and what did God declare it when it was all done? It was good. There's not this, God is saying, well, that's not good, and the only problem God ever had was, the avocado pit is just a little too big. But other than that, we've forgiven God for things, okay? It could have been, a little smaller, a little more avocado, but I'm just saying. So, we get into this universal flow. How do we get in the flow? What's the flow? Giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. God is not sitting up there with a treasure chest. Oh, here's some for you, and here's some for you, and here's some, no, not for you. Nah, here's some for you. It doesn't work that way. God says, I am abundance. I am prosperity. I am infinite possibilities. I am infinite possibilities. You see, the divine is biased. I love that. The divine is biased for good. God always wants good into your life, always. The things that you judge as not good, how many have had this happen? Thank God I had that X happen, whatever X is, because if I hadn't had that happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. The challenges and the struggles and the tribulations, if you will, that we have are not things to rebel against. They are teachers, they are guides, they are wisdom. And when we can step forward and say, I'm not saying everything is good. You got a health challenge, it doesn't feel good. You got a money challenge, it doesn't feel good. You got a relationship challenge, it doesn't feel good. That's true. But when you can come from the place, again, from your spiritual well-being and say, I'm going to take a breath in here, and somehow I know that this situation, person, event, thing, whatever it is a teacher. Is a guide. And if I listen, then I will get the lesson. We must be open to the lesson. Hear me very clearly. God is not sitting up there giving you lessons, because that's a punishment, right? You didn't learn the first time, so by God, you're going to learn it the second time. Doesn't work that way. It's like, am I open to receiving the gift? This is a gift. The relationship challenge you're having is a gift. The money challenge you're having is a gift. I don't know about you, but man, that's hard to see. In the moment when I balance my checkbook and there's a lot of red left over, and payday is until next Monday, I'm thinking, ooh, is that a gift? It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. Our humanness says it doesn't feel like it. But if we can take that step back and say, somewhere in there is a moment of understanding. Somewhere in there is a gift for my future. Somewhere in there is instruction and guidance so that I can more perfectly, clearly understand God is everywhere present. God is not subtracting anything from me, that I am in the flow. Then as I give, I receive. I want to remind you, as I have to remind myself over and over again when things turn south, as they say, that God is biased for our good. And it doesn't feel good because we are human beings. And we have things that go bump in the night and they just don't feel good. But when we can circle back and say, you know what? I've seen this movie before, that as I work my way through the hurt, the pain, the frustration, the anger, and I can begin to see the good, it's amazing how things change. It's absolutely amazing. And that last section, number 3, says we should turn from the appearance of lack by declaring, I establish myself in the limitless substance of God, and I have abundance. Now, here's the key. These words do not become true because we affirm them. We affirm them because they are true. Do you understand the difference? We say, if I shout it loud enough, if I jump up and down 3 and 4 times, God will hear me and will make it true. You are not making it true. It is true. And that's the concept of shifting your mind from saying, looky, God, looky, you've got to fix this, you've got to change this, to God is present, with all the wisdom, with all the guidance, with all the courage, with all the strength. God is present right here, right now, within me. That's the shift. That's the mindset that we have to shift. It isn't that we shout it loud enough to make it true. It already is true. And lastly, at the very bottom, she says, the supply of good always awaits the demand. Are you clear on what you want? Yeah, I want more money. Well, what is that supposed to mean? The universe goes, and? How much money do you want? You may need $10. You may need 1,000. You may need a plane ticket to Timbuktu. You don't know. But as long as we live in this kind of vague, unformed world, the universe is going, they want something, but I'm not really sure what it is. What is it that you want? What does peace of mind look like? What does health look like? What does family relationships look like to you, uniquely to you? That's what she's talking about. There's a demand that is being made before the supply can fill it. Our goal should not be to acquire money or things, but to achieve the consciousness through which the substance will flow forth as we need it. So our work in this beginning week, as we study spiritual economics, as we ponder our pledge for the upcoming year, 2019, as I say, is not to quickly fill it out and say, well, that's all I have to give, and just be gone. It's rather to sit with the challenge that has been placed here. The challenge is to step out of defining prosperity as simply money and to open to a consciousness of spiritual well-being. And in each moment and in each day, as that consciousness grows, little by little, we invite ourselves to the opportunity when we hear ourselves pray, God up there, oop, wait a minute, God's not up there, God's not out there, God already knows my needs. The consciousness, I give to receive. I give love. I give attention. I give money. I give of myself. And in the moment as those giving, a kind word, how much does that cost you? A thank you. Go right ahead. Why don't you go ahead of me? You only got one item and I got 10. As they say, pay it forward. You know, the guy behind you at the toll booth. You pay for them. Simple things that we can do that invite us to the opportunity to consciously step into that flow. I'm giving and open myself to receive. I'm giving and I open myself to receive. And the flow begins to open and open. And as the flow opens and opens, that's when we experience that expansion of consciousness, when we truly begin to know that eternal love of God, that substance of God, that divine life of God, that we are good and that we are worthy, which we call spiritual well-being. And I don't know about you, but that is the greatest gift of God that we can all have and share. Thank you for joining me today, and God bless.